Hello and welcome to the Security Revolution from Seneca College in Toronto, Canada. My name is Claudio Popa, and I'll be taking you over a brief overview of our nonprofit activity in Canada. I represent a federally incorporated nonprofit called KnowledgeFlow, the Cybersafety Foundation, and we have a number of academic partners throughout the country. Today we are joined by Seneca. They are kindly hosting this event. We're happy to be streaming live around the world, and I'm here to talk about some of our most exciting activities, some of the research projects that we've been engaged in over the past few years, and some of the things that we have to look forward to over the next little while. First of all, thanks very much to Michael and everyone at Serene Risk for creating this thing. This is significant. This is a fantastic event, and I hope you get good metrics out of the viewership and out of the traction that you get with this event. We're looking forward to partnering, we're looking forward to collaboration, and we're looking forward to establishing a dialogue. The chat window is open, and we're willing to receive questions. Feel free to ask questions anytime, and I'm going to get flagged if any questions come through, and I'm happy to address them as they come through. So again, this is fantastic. This is a great platform. We thought we'd give everyone an idea of how things are here for us in Toronto or in Canada, as the case may be, because we're a small nonprofit. We started a few years ago, and we have some fairly big ideas, and there's a couple of topics that we'll be talking about. We're going to go over some of the causes that we have, some of the effects that our work has had, all of it positive, some of the research and innovation that is complete, and the projects that are ongoing. And so without further ado, I wanted to talk about KnowledgeFlow and the way we set things up originally. Basically, 5 to 10 years ago, KnowledgeFlow was just a small group of driven individuals, professionals, caring individuals who identified not an opportunity but a problem. And that problem in Canada has been that the internet has been abused and misunderstood when it came to kids online. And so 5 years ago, and you've all been around that long, 5 years ago there were tremendously concerning reports about cyberbullying in Canada and how kids were suffering, and parents reacted the way you would expect them to. A lot of parents actually went and took their kids away from the internet or took mobile devices away from their children. And that resulted in a bit of a void, and we didn't want there to be a situation where kids would miss the opportunity to jump on this digital highway. We wanted them to be digital natives, and we don't want to miss the opportunity to stay with these trends that are ongoing. So we created what we knew how to do, and that was training programs. These training programs have been presented in schools, private schools, public schools, for the past few years, and they've been tremendously successful. That is due to the fact that the small core of us, our small group of professionals, are doing this day in and day out. I'm a cybersecurity or an information security professional. I'm a certified privacy professional. I've written a number of books, the most recent one being the Canadian Cyber Fraud Handbook. And the rest of our board at KnowledgeFlow is equally accredited, and it's literally composed of a number of really good individuals who happen to also be parents. So that's certainly very helpful. In addition to that, in my day life, I run a company called Informatica and Data Risk Canada, These two firms essentially deal with security, and they deal with risk assessment, they deal with penetration testing, they deal with education and consulting. And so we wanted to give back or even pay it forward, and we wanted to create a situation where it wouldn't be a matter of cost on the part of schools and on the part of parents to be able to afford access to certified professionals. And so that's why it was a grassroots effort that initially was incubated within Informatica or Data Risk Canada. And more recently, in the past couple of years, it's been a standalone nonprofit incorporated nationally. So our goals have always been to engage with people, but also bring some passion to it so that every one of those individuals that takes part in our educational programs has something to run with. So by bringing them on board, they become ambassadors themselves. So as you can see, we leverage current trends, create innovative techniques, and apply standardized methods to disseminate cyber safety education and boost threat awareness. And that's certainly a mouthful. And as you can hear, there's more of a qualitative approach to things. And this is where today comes in, because really my professional focus has been to bring empirical data and bring scientific studies and bring statistical information to bear so that we can drive the discourse towards a place where we're developing content based on information and not necessarily based on emotion. So as you can see from some of the interviews that I've done and some of the places where I've been, I've always tried to bring statistical information so as to raise awareness about cyber safety. And now, though cyber safety is a big term, cyber safety is in fact an umbrella term. It used to be cyberbullying, but it expanded to be so much more. And so we created, right off the bat, from the beginning, we wanted to give individuals, students, teachers, supporters, we wanted to give them recognition. So we created this certificate program that allowed people to be educated, that allowed people to run with it. And so here you see the former Privacy Commissioner Ann Cavoukian receiving her certificate, and some of the activities that we put on were extremely engaging. The last thing we want to do is put on anything that's boring. And so we had concerts, we've had all sorts of community events. We've been invited by various municipalities to present suites of courses and workshops, some targeted at seniors, some targeted at parents, some for law enforcement, and of course, teachers. And so we do a lot of stuff, and we do it with very little funding. And that's why our partners are very important, because we use our partners to get information, to get data. We use some of our information sources to fuel some of the projects that you're about to see. And also we use data to target some of the initiatives. So for example, one of the early initiatives that dealt with cyberbullying was a situation where we wanted kids to not feel powerless in situations where they felt intimidated or victimized online or otherwise with digital tools. And what we did is we created the Not on My Internet initiative, and that was a hashtag that they could use, and they could use it on Facebook, they could use it on Twitter to draw attention to what was going on, either for themselves within their own context or what they saw happening. And in doing so, we created a web of, a small individual webs of attention on certain situations. And that Not on My Internet remains our Twitter handle, in fact. So KnowledgeFlow's Twitter handle is /NotOnMyInternet. So that very simple type of social media presence could go a long way given the right amount of exposure and traction. And again, cyberbullying, if we look at the numbers, if we look at the data, that data points to the fact that the volume of individuals being bullied equals the volume of individuals bullying. And it's not because there's a one-to-one relationship, but in fact, in many cases, those victims are actually bullies themselves, or they turn into bullies as a result of the situations they've been exposed to. And so, again, we like to rely on that data, and the more information we can get at, the more we can empower the public. So, there we are. So some of the community programs we created were senior seminars, like I said, workshops for parents, small business presentations, community outreach, law enforcement seminars. Interestingly enough, we had a set of merchandise. We have a new shop coming up just for schools to be able to let their students wear some of the cool stuff that's designed specifically for kids to take ownership. And it feels funny because we always complain about kids having an entitlement mentality nowadays. And really, we want them to have an entitlement mentality when it comes to the internet. It's their internet. They need to become engaged, and they need to contribute. And so that's part and parcel of the first principles of cyber safety program that I'll be talking to you about soon. So exciting things. We try to make people very proud of these things. And so as people walk away with their certificates, as people walk away with newfound knowledge or tidbits of information that allow them to feel like they're in control, schools or school boards or new audiences, we're able to not just say, hey, you know what, we are certified professionals when it comes to cyber safety, when it comes to security and privacy and online safety and so on. So we're more than that. We are experienced individuals who can engage with audiences of all ages. And so our programs, which are continuously being developed, are developed for specific grades, namely K to 12. And so each one of those grades is individually geared towards what those young people are ready to receive as far as information. So in many cases, we deliver those for free in schools as pilot projects for communities. In other cases, there are nominal fees to cover transportation. But this is to give you all an idea, because our viewers today come from all sorts of places around the world. And it's important to realize that in a climate where information might not be available, where trust in professionals might not quite be where it should, we try to bring that standardized approach to doing things. And by standardized, I mean that the content that was used to build some of these courses, all of these courses, is legitimate. It's authoritative. We have gone and literally scraped Privacy Commissioner websites, obviously with consent, and extracted some of that content and put it into an exciting format. And in so doing, when we're presenting to young people, they feel engaged and they feel like participating. And that's a big deal, because oftentimes we get brought in and it's permanently up and asking questions. And that part of the reason for that is the data that we bring to those classes, because we talk to kids in concrete terms. We don't necessarily want to hit them up with emotional drivers, right? We want to talk to them about the likelihood of getting into trouble or the likelihood of having a positive experience. What are the positive experiences that you can have on the internet? And let's look for more of those. And let's engage with parents and bring them along rather than having the internet be a babysitter. So these types of things are obviously fine-tuned to the audience. And so we created something as a nod to the Privacy by Design which is the gold standard in privacy, we created something called the first principles of cyber safety, or the foundational principles of cyber safety by design, and that they used to be hosted on the provincial privacy commissioner's website, and here they are. There are 7 principles, and those 7 principles are things that adults will get. These tend to be high level. These are things that organizations can get behind. They are fully aligned with the privacy by design approach. And again, they're high level enough that you can get behind them. And we're trying to push cyber safety at all levels, including workplaces, because we deal with situations where there's cyber harassment between spouses in today's workplaces, which, among other things, is illegal. So the cyber safety risk landscape, again, these are the types of things that we go to management with, that we go to adults, to grown-ups, and we talk to them about the various facets of cyber safety and how it takes professionals and how it takes real tangible information to do something about these things, and how to integrate some of these together so that there's a coherent message. Right? Not just a fear-based message, because we're always trying to eliminate FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And again, a lot of this stuff has been done with little to no money. So our development has gone on literally because of passionate individuals. So we're always looking for more qualified professionals to participate. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've been lucky enough to take part in. Just a quick time check here. We're doing well. And since we're at Seneca College, I thought I would start with a Seneca College project. And a Seneca College project would be this one. And this one is called the Canadian Cybercrime Information Center. For the media, and it was created specifically for the Canadian public. So for example, most recently this week we heard about bank breaches, and a lot of the interview requests that I've had have sent me questions around what does it mean to individuals to have their social insurance numbers stolen and their dates of birth and their personal contact information and so on. What can be done with that type of information? This is the kind of site, this is the only site as far as we're concerned, where you will be able to find information. We're just launching this, the CCIC, the Canadian Cybercrime Information Center, which is at cybercrimecanada.info, by the way. This is the only site that takes that raw, boring data and breaks it down into what it means for people. And that's why we depend so much on authoritative information, because some of the organizations that have been feeding us that information are recognized specifically. For example, there's the Norton Cybersecurity Insights report. And elsewhere on the site, you're going to find that information from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center is hosted here as well. So as you can see, there's an opportunity here to use the internet in such a way as to allow the public to understand what the impact is to them, as well as to educate the media on how to report some of these things without necessarily referring to fear-based language. Right? If we could present the data in a way that matters, if we can say, look, right here within the confines of Seneca College, we engaged with talented students to do research, and we trained those students to go on the dark web and engage with some sketchy characters. We did that work, and we extracted information that went into building this center. We figured out how much a Canadian's personal information is worth on those dark web markets. And some of that information is shared here. Other information is available simply by contacting us. So the media can literally come to the site and reach out and say, hey, you know what, we need numbers on this, or we need numbers on that, or we need to know how to report this type of information. And so this was born out of research that was done right here at Seneca College, and we can't thank them enough, not only for providing the students on an ongoing basis for research, but also for finding the funding to start this, this important resource, because as many cybercrime resources as there are in Canada, it's been hard to find a place where you can go and establish a dialogue, right? So we're still in the process of reaching out to many of them, and Serene Risk is one of the sites that has tremendously valuable information that we're looking to integrate and partner on. But yeah, we're always open to doing that kind of stuff and talking about the victims, talking about the impact, talking about different types of fraud. I mentioned earlier that one of my most recent books was the Canadian Cyber Fraud Handbook. And within it, one of the reasons for writing that book was to create a list of different types of cyber fraud. And anytime you talk to people, everyone feels like they were hit by one particular thing that is quite different from everybody else. And that's true. Every single instantiation of cyber fraud is tweaked to the audience, tweaked to the victim. And so what I wanted to do with that, and I had help from graduate students from UOIT, another academic institution that we partner with. What we did there is we created a classification schema for classifying and understanding these types of cybercrime. So half of that book is dedicated to that, the cyber fraud framework, and that was published by Reuters, and you'll find it somewhere online. I think fraudbook.ca. So that's the Canadian Cybercrime Information Center, and we'll go back to our presentation and talk about some of the other interesting initiatives that we've got going. One of them was a program called Social Waves. Now, Social Waves was born out of a fantastic government program called the Capstone program, and that allows us to work with academic institutions and to get students and engage with teams of individuals who are excited about helping out. And so one of the things that was going on, or that were going on last year, was this, and still going on this year for sure, is this idea of fake news and Russian bots or politicized fake accounts, things of that nature. And we wanted to take a different approach to this because we thought, well, this is interesting. So we created something called the Human or Bot, which is essentially a repository of links. So when someone comes across an account on any social media platform, they take that URL, they put it into Human or Bot, and this engine is able to walk people through, think about an expert system, walk people through a number of questions and have them figure out, in fact, what the likelihood is that this is a fake account or a bot. Certainly not an individual or someone with a political or politicized agenda. So that was an interesting thing, and we had hundreds of hits on that and hundreds of people going through the study over an 8-week period. So that was exciting, and again, the idea here is that we're not just automating for the sake of automation. What we're doing here is we're educating people as we're walking them through the process of classifying different types of abusive or nefarious activity. So that was kind of neat. Another thing that we did also with UOIT's Capstone project was to get students together and do a study of the degree and levels of cyber safety awareness in schools, or the availability of education in schools across Canada, across different provinces. So we called a few hundred schools, and we were able to map out those schools and those districts in many cases that had the highest and those that had the lowest levels of cyber safety awareness. And that included privacy, and that included security, that included education about, let's say, social media or tools or even cyberbullying, right? So it's broad-based. There's this umbrella term of cyber safety that we're using, and we're able to get some data out, and that data resulted in showing some high and low levels of support. Now, those levels of support may be very specific to those districts, right? Because we didn't interview everyone, but we got a fairly good idea of which territories, which provinces have those highest levels of awareness, and we use those to power some of our other initiatives. So one of those initiatives, like I mentioned before, is the First Principles of Cyber Safety program, and that's a K-12 program that we've been piloting through schools and through local boards of education. We're always looking for more to partner with, but generally speaking, literally just going to our website, which is cybersafetyfoundation.org, we're able to typically engage with principals, and those principals generally will welcome us and will share information. And we're always looking for information, as you can gather. I myself am an information junkie, so we know what to do with that information. We'll turn it into a customized program for that school, and that's because we have the ability to do that if, in fact, we're going to be presenting that in an instructor-led setting. Now, the challenge there is to scale it, and to scale it in such a way as to be able to present it across Canada in less than a few lifetimes, right? So for that, we would need to employ technology, and that's what's going on today with the newest capstone programs. But as we were making the transition from a qualitative to a quantitative way of approaching this challenge of disseminating cyber safety education, we wanted to simplify the approach, because we understand that anything could fit within cyber safety. I myself, I'm passionate about wildlife cybercrime, for example, and that those are the kinds of things that really don't have a place within KnowledgeFlow, and we need to deal with them perhaps on at a political level. But from the perspective of KnowledgeFlow's activities, we needed to have a certification and an educational platform, and we needed to have professional development, we needed to have awareness. Obviously, access to information is important, because this is not the kind of tool that we can afford to allow to go stale. So we decided to aim for turnkey courses. We wanted them to be online. We wanted to be engaging. And one of the things that I said to students right here at Seneca that are involved in this capstone program is to not focus on the kind of traction and engagement that an individually presented course presents, right? So if you've got individual connections with a classroom, an instructor-led setting, well, you've got a certain number of benefits, right? You can gesticulate, and you can present items, and you can make it interactive in a pretty special way. But today, we've got all sorts of technology available to us, so I'm really looking forward to seeing in a couple of months what that program will result in, because we're thinking from a very broad perspective about what technology can do for distance education. And the best way to test this is on young people. If you can grab their attention, and if you can get them as addicted to those kinds of videos as they are to some other videos that you might find your kids glued to on YouTube, then you've got something. So this is the type of challenge that we're looking for. Right now, we're looking for an ideal platform for e-learning, for distance learning, and I welcome your suggestions for doing so. Again, everything about KnowledgeFlow is product agnostic, vendor agnostic. We are not tied to any particular technology, so we welcome all suggestions. And again, there's any number of benefits to these programs. There's a certification path, of course. You can go through a number of different types of accreditation. And there's a performance-based, but also to go through. Well, for two reasons. One, you really need them to not just take one course, but you want them to come back next time. And they will need to come back for a reason. One of the most fun tools that I think, in fact, is a Canadian platform is the Prodigy math game, which created right here in Canada. And it's one of the stickiest educational tools I've ever seen, and my kids love it, for example. So gamification, great way to go about it, but it's not just for kids, it's also for adults. And so what we're looking to do is to deploy this, ensure that we reach a baseline of awareness and understanding right across the board. So as we're working our way towards the outro, I wanted to wrap up by saying that, again, we've been doing things with little to no money, and we can keep going. Certainly, we're not going anywhere. There's always a need for project and program corporate sponsors. Those would be fantastic. And again, we're looking at a few of those for our information partners are a big deal to us. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, for example, has been fantastic in giving us information about whatever they have access to. But there's so much more information, for example, from the banking and financial sector that is used to operating under a veil of secrecy. Secrecy doesn't really work when you're trying to raise the level of awareness in a society. And that's why 2018 is going to be a pivotal year, because here in Canada, not only do we now have GDPR that has introduced the idea of mandatory breach reporting, but as of November, PIPEDA, our privacy law, is being augmented to require companies, all companies, private firms, to not only report data breaches and hacks, but be able to detect them. And that's a big deal, because they're going to have to be investing in technology that allows them to monitor and detect security breaches, which means they'll need to understand what a breach is, and they'll need to care about it. That's not to say that they didn't care, but up until now, it's been very difficult to establish or to create budgets. And that's why it's a pivotal year, and I'm very excited about that. Academic institutions, we'd love to partner right across Canada. And of course, boards of education are important to us from the perspective of the first principles of cyber safety program, because we can't always go bottom up. We can't just go school to school, principal to principal. At the end of the day, we need boards of education to help propagate that content. So those partnerships are important to us, and those partnerships are important because a lot of the knowledge and the content that we present literally comes straight from our partners, and we are totally fine to put our partners' names right up there for these reasons. So turnkey systems and solutions, research and development, best practices frameworks. We've talked about these things within the context of the security revolution, and certainly these are areas where we can partner and we can literally just plug in any best practices or any solid foundation or platform that would work to benefit the public. So that's that for the cybersecurity revolution presentation. Again, I want to thank, primarily I want to thank Seneca College for allowing us to set this up, and for hosting this event, and for doing such a fantastic job of allowing me to present here. Thank you to our board of directors at KnowledgeFlow. And of course, thank you to the Security Revolution and everyone at Serene Risk for putting this on. I really appreciate having the opportunity to communicate directly with other professionals around the world or local right here in Canada, and seeing what everyone is doing. So far today, I've enjoyed some of the streams that have gone on before us, and it looks like so many people really care about security data and empirical approaches to doing work. And so the more data we have, the more data we can rely on, the less of a privacy impact it has, by the way, because we don't want to sound like marketers that are all about getting the data. Totally fine to sell, but as far as getting access to information that allows us to better protect the public, this is the type of work that is necessary, and that's why the hashtag SecRev is so important. So thanks again for the opportunity, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Feel free to email me directly at info@knowledgeflow.ca with any suggestions or partnerships.